Good morning, Lagos, and thank you very much for staying tuned here on Smooth 98.1. It's Smooth Breakfast here, and I'm Ayo Mairo Ese. It's time to go through the national newspaper stories for today. Today being the 7th of February 2020. Joining us for analysis this morning, we have Tunde Okufi. Morning, Tunde.
Morning, Aya.
Thank you. I was expecting morning Ayo, my morning Valentine. So I paused a bit. Valentine is in here this morning. Thank you, Tunde. Morning, Mr. C. Good morning.
Good morning, Aya. Good morning, Tunde. Good morning, Waji. Good morning, Lagos.
Good to see you again. Welcome back. And good morning, Waji.
Morning, Aya. Morning, gentlemen, and good morning to everybody in Lagos.
All right. So if you'd like to be a part of the conversation this morning, please send your message to WhatsApp 0809 4440981. On Twitter, it's at smooth981FM. Kindly use the hashtag freshlypressed981. On YouTube, we're streaming live. Please go on there and you can use the live chat option smooth981FM Lagos. Let's get straight into the story. So today, Mr. C, I'll start with you. Please kill two wanted terrorists, lose officer during raid. This report is from the Guardian newspaper, and according to it, we have that the police have killed two wanted commanders of the Ansaru terror group, but lost, unfortunately, one inspector, Mohammed Abubakar, attached to the police special forces during Wednesday's operation at Kuduru Forest, Birnin Gwari in Kaduna State. Please take us through the story.
So, a quick background check. Who are the Ansar Terror Group? Now, this is a group that has been responsible for several attacks, and their last known attacks were in February 2013, when 7 foreign nationals were kidnapped from the compound of a Lebanese construction company. Just last month, this same group attacked the convoy of the Emir of Potiskum and killed 3 of his aides and injured many people on the highway. Now, the police, in an operation titled Operation Puff Adder, attacked their camp, one of their camps at Kuduru in Kaduna State. And in the course of the attack, they neutralized over 250 members of this group. Unfortunately, they lost the senior police officer who was quite experienced and quite good at his job. Now, this is kudos to the security agencies because once again, we've neutralized certain terror threats.
Yes.
Now, it's important to note that in as much as there's a rising level of insecurity in the country, our security agencies are doing the best. We don't hear about the plots they stop most of the time. What we hear are the plots that they couldn't stop. But it's a good thing that this major camp has been brought down, and it will encourage them to go after the other camps of the other groups.
Yes, thank you very much. Yesterday, we did highlight a few successes that have been recorded in the fight against
Terror.
terrorism, as well as in the would I use the word fight, but in the bid to maintain security in the nation. And I think as we send out the stories of terrorist attacks, banditry, kidnappings, we should also be able to celebrate wins like this. So
Yes.
thank you very much for your analysis. We move on to our next story here. Wadi, I'll come to you for that. More trouble for commuters in Lagos as government turns screw on Uber drivers. So, Wadi, it's your first time here today, but I'm sure you know and you have heard about what's going on in Lagos. And you're a commuter yourself, so you'll understand. We're just, would I say, well, we haven't quite recovered from the ban that was effected on Monday, 1st of February, and that's the ban for commercial motorcycles and tricycles. Now, today, Uber drivers are now, it looks like the Lagos state government is really paying attention to the traffic situation. Please take us through this story.
All right. So, when you get into the reasons why the state government is going about doing these things with regards to ban on these options for commuting vis-a-vis the motorcycles, Okadas, and the kekes and everything else, you need to begin to ask the reasons why. And the fundamental conversation revolves around security. And it's very, very unfortunate, but when you now weigh security versus the hardships of moving around,
Yeah.
you're always going to lose that argument to security. And that is just a cold, hard fact. Everybody's suffering from it, whether you drive or you don't drive. You are a regular transportation person that now moves around with Okada or whatever the case may be. These are the issues you're going to have to face.
Yes.
Now, with specific regard to this story that's taking a look at going into Uber and the regulations around them,
Yeah.
it's a very cold, hard fact that has been stated in the article, which indicates that there's a particular license called a Hackney license
Yes.
that the Uber drivers need to have in order to operate from a commercial point of view. And the reasons why they're being impounded is because when they're pulled over and the authorities ask for this particular hacking license, a lot of the drivers are not producing it. Now, the driver's argument is that Uber should do something about that in order for them not to be harassed or pulled over or made to pay any particular kind of fine, which I particularly understand. So what Uber now needs to do is, because it's the same issue Uber had in London when they didn't have a particular metropolitan permit, and that's why they lost that particular case. I'm sorry, the judgment came against them, and they're now currently appealing it. So it's difficult, because what the mayor of London was trying to do was to get them to now follow the necessary procedures with regards to getting the right license. And that's just what it's about. It's about making sure things are properly regulated and everything else for security reasons. Why? Because there have been incidences of these ride-sharing car vehicles where it has been used for crime and people have been accosted and assaulted, and these things need to stop. So the government is towing the line of the security aspect. Now, can we argue with the method with which they're going about it? Absolutely. Could they have done things a lot better? No arguments there. But with regards to the fundamental reasons why they've turned the screw on the Okadas, on the Kekes, and are now moving toward other ride-sharing apps, is for the reasons of security, regulation, and monitoring, so that everybody knows what they're doing. Hardships are insurmountable. What used to take me a 6-minute drive is now taking me an hour-plus drive just to move from one particular location to another. So it's madness. We're all suffering for it. But when you now begin to understand the larger scheme of the conversation, especially when you saw the quote-unquote protest, where you had people who were Okada drivers and Keke drivers exchanging fire with police, the government's going to sit back and be like, well, these are the reasons why we banned them. The mere fact that these people think that they have the impunity and the reckless of the brigandry to be miscreants and come at us with the way they're coming at us is more than a validation for the reasons that we took. So it's going to be a hardship. Lagos is a mega city with a lot of people. So it's about everybody just adjusting a bit and figuring out how best to move around. It's unfortunate, but it's just the reality of the situation.
Thank you very much. Like you mentioned, unfortunate, but the reality. And now I think after like almost a week, tomorrow will make it a week since the ban came into effect in 6 local government areas of Lagos State, people are starting to see that. And like the governor said this in the middle of this week, that they're not going to go back.
They're
on
not playing.
Decision.
By in the next couple of weeks, people will adjust. I think right now it's just a shock to the system, and everyone's trying to endure it out. It's just one of those things that government had to do, because it is a security problem. I mean, we're having this conversation downstairs, and to this very specific point, if anything, unfortunately were to happen as a result of Okadas coming together and there were casualties involved, there's no government that comes back from that. You do not recover from that kind of situation. You just don't. Because of security lapses, especially when you have information, especially when you have intelligence that's pointing towards where these things are coming from. So the government had to do what they had to do. And this is one of those things where in Nigeria, they're being very forthright with regards to this decision. So we can argue the methodology and the different things that they could have done and the sophistication with which they could have gone about it. We can argue that, but you cannot argue against the reasons for putting this ban in place.
All right, thank you very much. Prince on WhatsApp says the law relating to commercial transportation requires anyone to obtain hackney permits before operating. There's nothing wrong with government or what the government said about we should start doing things according to.
Thank you. And that's just the point. So it's not, you see, and this is the thing, these things are laws. So people should stop acting like the government are acting out of things that are actually legislated. These things are pure laws, and it's pure and simple.
Well, Emeka says that the hackney permit has nothing to do with security. Government has realized they've been losing revenue. It's all about raising money.
No. There are two different arguments. The first conversation was around the Okada ban and the Keke ban. That had to do with security. With regards to Uber, it's about regulation and making sure things are properly monitored. At the same time, it is also has a knock-on effect on security, because you now know who is operating a particular vehicle.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Nwaji. Let's move on to our next story. And I'll come to you for this. Tunde, VAT on calls. Meet FIRS Minister tells subscribers. Now, from the 1st of February, so I think a number of significant things happened. And one of it is involving money. The VAT was raised from 5% to 7.5% with the new finance bill that was signed into law by the president. Now, you will notice, for those who pay attention to their call, to the amount of money charged after a call or a text message, text is easier because it used to be 4 naira, now it's 4 naira 10 kobo, and they will tell you that it's because of the increase in VAT. Now, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. Issa Pantami, has asked subscribers who have expressed concern over these additional charges on voice calls, SMS, and data to direct grievances to the FIRS. Please take us to the story.
So once again, this highlights the lack of synergy and the coordination between different aspects or agencies and or ministries of the government. You'd expect that they work in concert in arriving at certain things, and that there should be proper consultation. It's easy to look at it as the widening reach or maybe overreach of the FIR. Arguments and questions that come into play. VAT is typically charged or is supposed to be billed on when you purchase the service, right? Not when you're using it. Let's take Ghana for instance, right? So it's not strange and entirely new to charge VAT on telecoms products. But what would happen? What I know happens in Ghana is if you were to buy, say, maybe recharge of or top up of 20 CDs, you wouldn't get exactly 20 CDs because you won't be credited 20 CDs because VAT has been deducted from that, and more palatable, right? As opposed to for every text message that you send, for every call that you make, it's an abuse of the application of VAT. It then it's not, don't call it VAT, just call it some levy that you've chosen to levy, the entire nation, so to say, in your revenue drive. We all know how FIRS has stated its targets, and the aim is to drive and increase government revenue from non-oil sector. But going about it in manners like this will clearly raise questions. And the minister has said, look, this is not on my door. It's very clear. Saying they didn't consult, they didn't tell us anything. We are. How did you put this? I think we're asking for clarification in a civil manner as well. But it's one of those where I'm refraining from saying it's clear, but to me it's clear that this is not how VAT is meant to be applied, and people should take it up. Industry operators, the ministry should take it up at FIRS, and they should sort this out because subscribers shouldn't be left holding the wrong end of the stick. Which VAT is billed in as part of the recharge amount today. Maybe hadn't been as transparent to subscribers before, and this increase has sort of changed that, but it shouldn't be billed on SMSs and calls.
All right, thank you very much. I think just to highlight again something that you mentioned is the synergy between or among government agencies. The minister publicly comes out to say that he wasn't consulted. How can you not be consulted for such a thing that comes under your purview? We'll move on to other stories, and we have this from the This Day newspaper. Mr. C, I'll come to you. Political parties kick as INEC deregisters 74 parties. Now, there were 92 registered political parties in the country, and I remember during the last election, it was a topic of, for debate. A number of people questioned why we had so many parties that didn't seem to be fielding candidates, even some of them not even at government, that's gubernatorial level, and we questioned why they should stand alone as parties. Now we have only 18 registered parties. It's even easier to go through them than the ones that were deregistered. Please take us to the story.
Okay, so first things first, we have too many political parties in Nigeria, even at 18. Now, 74 political parties have been deregistered, and the members of these parties are crying foul, stating that INEC does not have the power to deregister them. Now, Lagos, please listen carefully. Prior to 2018, they would have been correct, because what obtained before 2018 was INEC lacked the power to deregister political parties, and when they did deregister parties, those parties successfully appealed the INEC action in the court, and the courts did hold that INEC lacked the power. In 2018, there was an amendment of the Constitution, which is the fourth alteration, and that fourth alteration gave INEC the power to deregister parties. Now, what are the circumstances under which a party can be deregistered, and what was the reason INEC gave for the registration? INEC said that following the conduct of the 2019 elections and the rerun elections, they were able to put their data together, and they discovered that these 74 parties failed to win at least 25% of the votes cast in the presidential election or any of the gubernatorial elections held in the states. They failed to win any seat in the National Assembly or the State House of Assemblies, or even a councillorship seat in a local government chairman in a local government election. Now, it begs the question, if you cannot win a seat in an election, why are you still in business? And Nigerians need to understand that there's a subvention that comes from INEC to political parties. That is why we had as much as 92 parties.
Yeah.
So most of them are in it for the money. And looking at the names of these parties, it's a big joke. There's a party called All Blending Party. What does that mean?
No, that's it. They choose. They have a right to choose whatever.
All
name
Blending Party, Ayo.
It's the people that will vote for them. Some
Okay.
people in the market just think, "Oh, I like that name. I want maybe someone that finds and blending. I identify with that."
Okay, so
What are you blending? So,
Or blending cultures.
right.
oh,
Yes.
right. Okay, so
Nigeria.
so basically, what it is even with the 18, right?
Mhm.
There's no sense of an ideology. We don't know what the parties stand for. The ruling party, the main opposition party, the other parties, we don't know what they stand for. That is why it's very easy for them to cross carpets at
Yeah.
will. Contrast that with the UK or the US. People don't cross carpets for fun. So Nigerians, even 18 parties that are left, we need to ask, what are your plans? What exactly are you guys up to?
So we need even deeper scrutiny for the 18.
Yes.
All right. Talking about the 18, I'm trying to get to the place where some of them are having, yes, we have it noted. We have Accord Party, Action Alliance, African Action Congress, notably ANN, on the platform which Fela Durote ran for election,
Yes.
has been deregistered. And a few other parties. You might want to check the detail of that in, many of the newspaper dailies for today. All right, let's move on to our next one. This is NASA fails to submit audited accounts. Or actually, I'll go to Fashola. Fashola foiled attempts to bomb Lagos. Before then, let me take some comments, and then Nwaji, I'll just give you a moment to look through that story. Fashola, how we foiled attempts to bomb Lagos from this day newspaper. We have from Akanimo from Lekki, who says, the registration of parties, best news I've heard in a long time. Kudos to INEC. 18 is still many, but this is a great start. And then some people, someone says Bloomberg Cross Party. Bengu says, I commend the registering of some political parties because these parties were constituting a nuisance in our political space. Those parties who couldn't win an election if conducted in their neighborhood suddenly wanted to be the president of the country. Even those who had the opportunity of coming together to be more formidable eventually fell apart like a pack of cards. All right. To that story that I mentioned earlier on, Fashola, how we foiled attempts to bomb Lagos is a story. The Minister for Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, who is the former governor of Lagos State, narrated an attempt by terrorists to bomb Lagos in 2013 and how it was foiled. Please take us through the story, Nwaji.
This article reminds me of a fantastic quote from a poem by a wonderful poet called Thomas Babington Macaulay, called The Lays of Rome. And the quote says, you protect my life and property, you have my allegiance. Okay. Now, what Fashola is basically saying is that, we paid attention to intelligence that came our way with regards to a significant threat that was actually very real in 2013. And I remember this clear as day, where they had actual evidence and facts that Lagos was going to be a target of a Boko Haram attack. And he's just basically going into the specific details of how this happened. Now, what this administration, their body language and their narrations in 2020 is pointing toward, and this could be connected to so many other things, is that they are taking a very definitive and clear stance on security. Okay?
Yes.
You're beginning to see its echo at the federal level, at the state level. And I'm impressed because I've always believed that you have to take control of the narrative with regards to what your body language articulates, you're taking on certain things. That alone is a deterrence towards groups and towards organizations that are planning heinous things where lives are going to be lost. And it's important that they are consistent with this narrative and they do it to the best of their authority with as much authenticity as well to make sure that they actually carry out whatever policies that they have in place. And I think Fashola is doing this because he was attending a particular program that was speaking on security,
Yes.
the United Action for Change. And he now brought up how when he was governor, his administration when he was governor took, local steps to ensure that they fought a security threat that was actually quite apparent.
Yeah.
And this should be a lesson for all individuals who are the executives of their state to be able to now pay attention to intelligence that comes your way. And it further beckons and has the larger conversation around the existence of Amotekun, which he supports, which Fashola supports, by the way, because we need to go to regional policing and security and community policing, because that's the only way that you're actually going to get the information that you need. I mean, when you think about what the military have done with the fight of Boko Haram in the north, majority of the intelligence came from the locals in the north. Majority of the people who joined them to go fight Boko Haram were indigenous of that particular region.
Yes.
So you cannot ignore the intelligence that's right in front of you because the community know. So if we now move towards maybe like standardizing an Amotekun type situation across Nigeria, then we can have better control of how we gain our intelligence and how we can begin to fight these individuals that are posing huge threats. These threats are part of the reasons why we are going down with global index security ratings. These threats are part of the reason why we're having issues with getting visas. These threats are part of the reasons why FDIs are no longer coming to Nigeria to invest in the way that they want to, because these things are real. Why would anybody want to come here if their life is under threat? If you cannot move at night because you're worried about getting attacked or getting robbed, and you cannot go to particular parts of the country because you're worried about terrorist attack, nobody's going to take you seriously. So if you want to move Nigeria to where you want to move Nigeria to, security has to be a forbidding conversation you must have. And they're starting with the body language and the narrative, and I applaud them for that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Waji. Move on to our next story. Tunde, President Economic Advisory Council slow growth rate. I remember just very recently some people had asked that going on with the advisory council since they were inaugurated. We haven't really heard much from them. Well, in Abuja, they submitted the preliminary report to the president, lamenting that the economic growth rate is slow in contrast to the population rate that is growing at a faster pace.
Yeah.
They're not the first people to actually say this. Please take us to the story.
Some people have been ringing this bell
Yes.
For a long time now.
Yes.
Although they don't provide the figures that I'm aware of is that our population is growing at about 2.6%.
Yeah, 2.6%.
And GDP is below that. That generally about between 1.8 and 2. I can't remember which year it was about 1.8, but I think it's about 2.01%. So that's below, and it's a problem. If we're growing people or we're producing people quicker than the economy is growing, then it's difficult to cater for them. And the only cater for them is going to grow the country and grow the nation. It has an immediate impact on per capita figures anyway. So that's the first thing. Look, like you said, it's clear from 2015, pretty much. Our GDP per capita has been in free fall, right? Since 2015. If you could, we like to compare ourselves to South Africa, saying that in terms of largest economy in Africa, but you look at the per capita, GDP stands at 7,525. Ours is at 2,412. There's a huge gap and difference.
Yes.
And it's things and it's levers like unbridled population growth and not growing at the rate to support your population. And the many different things to look at. You can say, we mentioned government agencies not working in concert. Then you can say maybe even the administration's own policies are not always in concert. And you look at the increases in tax.
Yes.
It's always a lever between increasing taxes and or reducing and or loosening taxes to stimulate the economy. If you look at the new tax laws in a whole, it should support small and medium enterprises, but the other parts that it sort of squeezes on the populace.
All right, thank you very much. Were you going to say something else?
Well, yeah, just a few. Just maybe let me mention two more things. Don't take up too much time. Their recommendations. I was looking for recommendations that would change. One thing that really needs to happen. So they've mentioned things around things around macroeconomic stability, around borrowing. I like that they mentioned education, but then that they need to also focus on building confidence for people to come and invest in the country. There are a number of things that I think that we do generally at federal level and state level with the Okada bans that sort of put people off from investing in the country. You have a lot of portfolio investors come through, but not people looking to invest in the real sector and putting things down long term. And we should look at that change. We have an economic recovery growth plan, and I'm not sure that we're sticking to that plan. Recommends things like infrastructure development and things that will help boost productivity. We really need to go back to that. But if you look at the budget again is heavy on foreign expenditure, not on the capital side to help things that will help boost productivity.
All right, thank you very much. Also, it's worthy of mention that they said the president has said he wouldn't, they wouldn't come to brief him once every quarter,
He wants
but we
more regular
increase the
briefing
frequency, so it's
to
once
6
in
weeks.
6
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
Devo says INEC did not need to register parties, rather set clear parameters for parties who intend to make the ballot, as well as receive subvention for the several electable seats, that is, local government areas, state and federal. This deregistration may be contested constitutionally. They've actually said they're going to court, so there's going to be more on that particular story. Mr. C, I'm back to you for the next story. NIMASA fails to submit audited accounts for 5 years, Premium Times. This week, we've touched a number of times. I think the Auditor General conference happened earlier this week, and it was recommended by the Auditor General of the Federation that money shouldn't be given to ministries, departments, and agencies that haven't audited their accounts. We have reports here that the House of Reps is investigating the matter, and as part of that, it's come out that they haven't produced audited accounts for 5 years. Please take us through this story.
Okay, so again, another incident of a sustained culture of impunity by Nigeria's government, Nigeria's ministries and departments and agencies. Now, NIMASA is one of the agencies tasked with monitoring and safeguarding Nigeria's coastal ways, and it's under the Ministry of Transport. Now, this administration came into power in 2015. The report says no audited accounts have been produced since 2014. Now, interestingly, the Director General of NIMASA is a former lawmaker. He was in the House of Representatives. Now, his account or explanation for the non-production of the audited accounts is he met a backlog in office when he resumed, and he's been dealing with them, but none have been signed. I'm sorry, this is ridiculous. He was appointed in 2015. This is 2020. No audited account. It speaks to the absence of supervision by the Minister of Transport, who incidentally is like his political godfather. And it also calls into question what exactly the National Assembly is doing. How do you approve a budget for an agency that refuses to submit audited accounts?
They did it yesterday or 2 days ago for the Nigerian Customs Service.
It is wrong, because under the Constitution, all agencies are required to submit the audited accounts by October.
All right, thank you. I wish we could delve into this a bit more, but because of our time, we'll need to move on to the next story. But it's important to note that NIMASA is not the only agency that hasn't submitted audited accounts. We have a number of them that haven't done so. And very quickly, Nwaji, maybe in 30 seconds, can you just touch on this story from the Premium Times? Agba Jalingo, Amnesty International accuses Nigerian government of manipulating justice system against detained journalists.
Yeah, fantastic story. Everyone should go read it. But my whole thing is that Agba Jalingo is being accused of treason for statements that he made against the Cross River governor when he was purportedly misappropriating some funds. And for me, when you go into the details of the story, is that the reason why it's in violation of his rights is because when you now begin to look at the 1999 Constitution, particular treaties that Nigeria has signed up to, such as the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, to which Nigeria are all parts, right? When we sign up to these things, inadvertently, the fourth estate, which is the press, is protected under these charters. So my whole thing is very simple as Nigerians. Stop signing up to these charters. Okay, if you want to now throw people in prison because they abused the governor, then let's just stop signing up to these charters. These things are ridiculous, because why sign up to these charters and then violate people's rights? It doesn't make any sense to me. So Nigeria needs to stop pretending that they want to be progressive and then now resort to draconian ways because of governor's feelings or his ego was bruised. Because that's pretty much it.
All right,
Right.
thank you very much. Like you mentioned, it would be great for you to read the article. It details Amnesty International's position and why they're saying the government is manipulating the justice system against the detained journalists. He could face up to life in prison or the death penalty if convicted. Lagos, that's all we can take this morning on Freshly Pressed 981. But thank you very much for being a part of the conversation. A big thanks to our analysts for today, Tunde Okufi at Big Coops on Twitter, Mr. C at D Mr. C on Twitter, Nwaji at the corporate MC on Twitter, corporate with a K. We are at Smooth 981 FM on Twitter using the hashtag FreshlyPress981. Let's take the conversation online. Next up, it will be sports in the locker room 981 with Tega. Thank you very much.